Hello. Welcome back to another episode of Tales by Candlelight. We are on to number 13 in this series. I took a moment's break. Oh, I have a cat on my knee. I think he's going to curl up. So hopefully, you might hear him purring, but hopefully he will just chill so that we can read this. The last one, I needed to take a wee breath, but I couldn't wait. I couldn't wait another day to read more because I am chomping at the bit to find out what on earth was going on. Why did he kill her parents? Who is she? What did he want with her in specific? Anyway, let's get stuck right into chapter 13. The blanket scratched against my skin, too clean, too stiff. I hadn't felt anything this sterile in months, and it made my teeth itch. The fluorescent lights buzzed overhead like a warning I couldn't decipher. I should have felt safe, but I didn't. Officer Ewing sat beside the bed, flipping through a notepad. His pen clicked every few seconds, scribbling something I couldn't see. He hadn't said much since I woke up, just asked the basics. What I remembered again, if I wanted to go home. No, I said, before he even finished the sentence. My throat was dry, my voice rough around the edges, but I meant it. I'm not going back there. He paused his writing and looked up at me. Are you sure? You've been through a lot, sometimes familiarity. He knows where I live, I interrupted. He helped build my house. He watched me long before this. I don't know how long, but I'm not going back there. Ewing nodded slowly, like he understood. But I wasn't convinced anyone really could. I'll stay somewhere else, just not there. All right, he said after a moment. We can set you up in a hotel in the next town over for now. We'll have someone from the department grab any personal items you need from your home. I hesitated. I didn't even know what I needed anymore. Everything from before felt like it belonged to someone else. Can you get me a notepad? I asked. I'll make a list. He left the room without a word, and when he came back, he handed me a cheap spiral notebook and pen. I stared at the blank page for a long time before I finally wrote. My camera, the memory cards in the desk drawer, a couple of hoodies in the hallway closet, and sweatpants from my dresser. Toothbrush and face wash, my laptop, a photo of parents, any photo. My passport, my gun in the safe, the code 6793. I stared at the list, unsure if anything on it still mattered, but it was all I could think of. My hands were trembling when I gave it to him. I'll make sure someone gets this today, he said, his eyes scanning the page. Anything else? I wanted to say peace, safety, answers. Instead, I just shook my head. They wheeled me out of the hospital first thing in the morning. The air was soggy and wet, the sky dull and void of colour, like the world had every intention of reflecting what had happened. The town they took me to was some small space just east of the county line, the kind of town people pass through on their way to somewhere else. New green leaves clung to the trees, trembling in the stormy wind. Daffodils lined the sidewalks like tiny sentries, bold and yellow against the cracked pavement. You could see the mountains peeking atop the buildings like little party hats. The tops of them dipped in white glitter and green sashes. The beauty of them, a marvel of its own. Officer Ewing drove in silence. His partner followed us behind in a separate car. At one point he asked if I was hungry, and I just shook my head. Although a minute later I changed my mind. I'd really love a burger and a milkshake, actually. Can't remember the last time I had that, I said, managing half a smile. He glanced at me, his expression unreadable. There's a place next to the hotel, an old diner. The locals swear by it. I nodded, hugging my coat tighter around me. The fabric still smelled faintly of smoke and earth and something else I didn't want to name. We pulled into the gravel lot just 10 minutes later. The diner looked like it had been carved out of the 1950s and left untouched. Chrome trim, faded red booths visible through the window, and a flickering sign that said lose. I couldn't tell if it was meant to be endearing or just depressing. Inside, the warmth hit me like a wave. Bacon grease and syrup, burnt coffee, and something sweet baking in the back. I slid into a booth near the window while Ewing stood at the counter placing our order. I caught the waitress glancing over at me, her eyes catching on the bandages and stiffness in how I sat. Her face softened in that way people do when they think something awful's happened and they don't know what to say. Ewing came back with 2 glasses of water and a plastic number card. They'll bring it out, he said, settling across from me. He didn't ask any more questions. He just sat there with his hands folded, glancing around the room like he was trying to memorise it. I haven't been here before, I said quietly. He nodded. Small town, a lot of history if you care about that sort of thing. Quiet, usually. I looked out the window at the empty street, just damp sidewalks, the skeletons of trees slowly waking up after a long, brutal winter. I couldn't tell if it was peaceful or dreadful. Maybe both. The food came fast, a paper-lined basket of fries steaming in the air between us, the burger heavy in my hands, its grease already soaking through the napkin. The milkshake was in one of those little metal cups, still frosty on the outside, vanilla, thick enough to bend the straw. I didn't realise how hungry I was until the first bite. My jaw ached when I chewed, like my body wasn't used to doing normal things anymore. But I kept going. I needed this, something solid, something hot, something that tasted like home, even if it wasn't mine. Ewing watched me for a minute and then picked up his own burger and started eating too. We didn't say much, just the occasional comment about the food, how the fries were perfect, how the burger was almost too greasy but in a good way. When I dipped a fry into the milkshake, he raised an eyebrow and shrugged. Don't knock it till you've tried it, I said, voice still a little hoarse from crying earlier. He smiled, barely, and took a sip of his coffee instead. I'll take your word for it. The silence after that wasn't uncomfortable. It just was. Like we were both pretending to be 2 people grabbing lunch on a quiet spring day in a quiet little town. Nothing more. But I could feel it behind my ribs. That buzz of wrongness. The kind that doesn't scream. The kind that just lingers, waiting for you to notice it. When I was full, I pushed the rest of my fries away and leaned back in the booth. My stomach was settled, but my head felt like it had been put through a blender. Thank you, I said softly. For this. For not rushing. Ewing nodded. You've been through hell. You don't need to explain anything. He said it so simply, like it was just a fact, not pity, not performance. Hell, he hit it right on the money. The hotel looked like it hadn't changed in decades, one of those ageing roadside places built before GPS even existed, with peeling green paint and a crooked neon sign that blinked vacancy like a nervous tick. 2 floors, all exterior entrances, and a front office that smelled like old coffee and plastic plants. The clerk barely looked up when I walked in. I guess I didn't look like someone who wanted small talk. He handed over a key, an actual metal key, not a card, and pointed down the row of rooms with a nicotine-stained finger. Room 208 was on the 2nd floor, halfway down the balcony. I climbed the stairs slowly, every step pulsing in my bad leg. The railing wobbled when I grabbed it like it was barely holding on. The door stuck before it opened, dragging across the frame like it hadn't been used in months. Inside, the air was stale, tinged with cleaning product and something older, mildew maybe, or the ghost of someone's cigarette habit. The curtains were yellowed and the bedspread scratchy looking, with a floral pattern that might have once been cheerful. It was exactly the kind of place that didn't ask questions, just offered you a bed and walls that kept things in or out, depending on what you needed. I dropped my jacket on the single chair in the corner and locked the door behind me. The bathroom light flickered when I flipped the switch, humming overhead. I avoided the mirror, even though I could feel it waiting for me. There was a TV bolted to the dresser, a Bible in the drawer, a couple of burn marks on the carpet. I sat on the edge of the bed and took a breath so deep it shook. It didn't feel real. Not the room, not the drive here, not the fact that I was free. If that's what this was. Everything felt too quiet, too still, like the world was holding its breath and hadn't decided if it was going to exhale or scream. Officer Young found my phone at Sam's house. I didn't realise I haven't had it since the hike. This whole time I really have had no track of time. My phone was charging, but I hadn't turned it on yet. I wasn't ready to hear the voicemails, to see the news, to be reminding that the world kept going while I was being frozen in hell. I lay back on the bed, not bothering to pull the covers up. The weight of food in my stomach was a comfort and a burden, proof that I was still here, still functioning. The hum of the old heater in the corner was the only sound, that and the occasional pop of the settling building. I closed my eyes, but my mind kept flashing, too fast, too sharp. The basement, the stew, the way Carrie's eyes looked when she told me to go. I reached for my phone, half to distract myself, half because some stubborn part of me wanted to feel connected to the world again. The screen lit up, blinding in the dim room. 10 voicemails, dozens of messages, missed calls, most from unknown numbers, some from names I hadn't seen in what felt like years. I didn't open them, not yet. Instead, I opened the camera roll. It felt safer. There were still photos from the hike, the last ones I'd taken before everything fell apart. Trees heavy with snow, animal tracks, a distant shot of the mountains behind my house. Then I saw one I didn't remember taking. A blurry image. Me sleeping, my face half buried in the bed. Scrolled faster, heart thudding. There were 10 of them, all taken from angles I couldn't have managed myself. I dropped the phone like it burned. It slid off the bed and hit the floor with a thud. I don't know how long I sat there just staring at the carpet, the faded pattern twisting into a black void. Eventually I laid back down, not because I thought I could sleep, but because I didn't know what else to do. I didn't sleep, not really. I drifted in and out, jerking awake every time the heater clicked or the wind pushed too hard against the window. Each sound felt like a knock at the door, like footsteps in the hallway. I kept telling myself I was safe. I said it out loud once just to hear it. I'm safe now. But the room didn't answer. By morning, the light bleeding in through the yellowed curtains was weak and sour. I got up and shuffled around the room, avoiding the mirror again. My skin felt too tight. My scalp itched from not washing my hair. But I didn't care enough to fix it yet. Not yet. There was a knock at the door around 10. My heart jumped sideways and I froze. It came again. 2 short taps this time. Not forceful, measured. I crossed the room and slowly and looked through the peephole. It was Ewing. Cracked the door open just enough to see his face. Hey. He held up a paper bag and a drink tray. Didn't think you'd be up for diner food 2 days in a row. I got the stuff from your house too. I opened the door wider, letting him in. He set the bag on the desk and nodded toward the window. You left your curtains open last night. Thought I'd check in. I did. He didn't answer that. Just started unpacking the food. Egg sandwich, apple, a bottle of orange juice. There's a social worker coming by later, he said gently. Just to talk, no pressure. She's good, you'll like her. I didn't respond. I picked at the sandwich and stared out the window. Ewing stayed a few more minutes and then told me to call if I needed anything and left without asking any more questions. I took a long shower, hot water that didn't run out, steam that filled the bathroom until the mirror blurred into white. I stood there until my fingers pruned, until the water stopped feeling good and started to sting. I dried off slowly, careful with my leg. The bandages were fresh, but the ache underneath pulsed steady. Not the sharp, screaming pain from before, just a dull reminder. I slipped on a sweat outfit and some running shoes. I have to go out today. I have to socialise. The idea of leaving the room made my stomach twist. The streets outside were quiet, peaceful, but he could be anywhere. He helped build my house. He knew where I lived. I pressed my palms against my knees and tried to breathe through it. He doesn't know I'm here, and staying hidden in a hotel room wasn't safety. It was just another kind of prison. I grabbed my bag and tucked the room key in my pocket. The air outside was lukewarm. Winter and spring were fighting. I kept my hood up and my heart. The air outside was lukewarm. Winter and spring were fighting. I kept my hood up and my head down, heart thudding with every step. The town was small enough that everything was walkable. A few blocks in each direction. A mix of old buildings with flaking paint and newer ones that tried to fit in. Most had big windows and handmade signs. A mural covered the side of one bakery, mountains and stars, wildflowers blooming across the bricks. Someone had painted a quote beneath it. Something about rising from the ashes. I didn't want to think too hard about that. I grazed through a thrift shop tucked between a hardware store and a hair salon. The whole place smelled like mothballs and fabric softener. The floors a patchwork of old rugs. I ran my fingers across a faded flannel, then a cracked leather wallet, then a box of old postcards. Some were blank. Some had writing so small I had to squint. Most ended with, "Wish you were here." I bought a used book of poetry and another sweater 3 sizes too big. The clerk rang me up without a word. At a gas station I grabbed a bottle of water, a pack of gum and a bag of salt and vinegar chips. Cashier gave me the same look the waitress had. Soft eyes, careful voice. I wasn't sure if it was kindness or pity, but I didn't want either. Daffodils bobbed along the sidewalk like they were listening. I followed the street until I reached the library, an old brick building with ivy on the corners and wide wooden doors. Inside it was cool and quiet. I sat in a corner with a book I didn't remember picking up. Something about true crime. I should have put it back, but I didn't. I read 3 chapters before I realised my hand was shaking. I left the book on the table and walked back to the hotel just as the clouds were starting to gather. The light in the room was gold and slanted when I got in. That soft, sinking kind of light that makes everything look like a memory. I set the book and the snacks on the table, sat on the bed and stared at the ceiling that was covered in this god-awful yellow wallpaper. For a moment I almost believed I was okay. Then I noticed the message light blinking on the hotel phone. Just once, not flashing, just a slow, steady red dot. I stared at the light. One single message. I didn't move. Could be anything, a wrong number, the front desk, some kind of automated call, nothing at all. But my chest felt too tight again, that familiar grip just beneath my ribs, and I knew better than to lie to myself. I knew the way dread moved. I stood slowly, crossed the room and picked up the receiver. The old hotel phone clicked in my hand. I punched the blinking button with my thumb and held my breath. A pause. Then the message played. Static. Then a low, grainy voice. Worked like it had come through a bad radio. Melanie. Just my name. Then silence. I hung up so hard the plastic cracked. The sound startled me more than the voice had. I stared down at the phone like it might ring again, but it didn't. I checked the front desk number on the card and called. "Hi, this is Melanie in 208. I said, trying to keep my voice even. "Did anyone call for me today? Maybe leave a message?" A pause, typing, then, "Doesn't look like it. No one's called your line since you checked in." I thanked them and hung up. For a few moments I sat perfectly still, every part of me buzzing like I'd touched a live wire. He couldn't know I was here. There was no way. I didn't leave the room again that day. I tried twice, got as far as the door once, hand on the knob, listening to the wind rake across the balcony like fingernails, but I couldn't make myself turn it. I couldn't step outside knowing that voice might still be out there, close, or worse, already watching. I double-checked the locks, pulled the curtains tighter, turned the TV on just to have the sound in the room, something that didn't sound like him. The phone didn't ring again. Eventually I fell asleep on top of the covers, fully dressed, one shoe still on. I dreamed of walking through a forest I didn't recognise, trees the colour of bruises, sky split with something red like a gash in the world. I woke up gasping. And that's it for this episode. Oh my goodness. Anyway, guys, that is number 13 done. Thank you so much for watching. Don't forget to give this video a thumbs up and subscribe, do all that jazz, and I will see you in the next one. Take care.